So we're getting into some detail now, and as you'd expect, being this is the knowing your numbers module, you would hope we'd get some detail at some point. This is starting to get into the practical application of this. So we've conceptually spoken around data integrity, we've conceptually spoken around what data you should be capturing, also about what external data you should be looking towards, and trying to put that into a workable format. Part of that workable format is, well, what's the rhythm that you're going to work on? How often are you going to look at these reports? And how often do you really need to look at, I guess, your future holdings in 12 months' time? So there's some cycles that we encourage you to get into, and there's some basic, I guess, rhythms that we can recommend, and when we do through the templates that we're going to provide. But again, every hotel is going to be slightly different, and you'll get into your own rhythm. So the idea of this is to give you a basic structure of what sort of daily, weekly, monthly rhythms you should be in. But every hotel, every apartment building, every B&B is going to be different. So take it on board and start to build your own structure and operating rhythm around your data management. So first of all, on a daily perspective, here's some things that we think you should be looking at. As a general principle, depending on the scale and the size of the property you've got, you could get away with monthly data reviews, and this would be an absolute minimum. If at the very least you looked at your numbers once a month, please start there. Please start there and then try and drill down further. We think you'll find that the intelligence that it gives you by looking at your numbers at least once a month will lead you to want to do more and more of it, because it actually is very helpful. You've got to get close to your numbers. The numbers don't lie, as we said. But what I'm going to start with is daily. So what you should, because this is our preference, we think you should be looking at it daily. We know plenty of properties that actually are looking at their pricing and their revenue management more than once a day. We're talking 3 and 4 times a day. They're checking, pulling reports, monitoring, making decisions and making changes regularly throughout the day. Obviously you need a business with a large enough scale to warrant that sort of resource and effort. But at the very least, we think many businesses could do with a daily approach to looking at your numbers. So first of all, daily you should be looking at pricing. That is your pricing versus your competitors' pricing inside the current month and maybe a little bit into next month. So on a daily basis, you should be scanning ahead on pricing and saying, what's my pricing compared to my biggest competitor or a couple of competitors for the next month and a little bit into the next month. So for the next few weeks. But you need to look at that every day, because most of your competitors are going to be changing it every day, and you might be left hung out to dry if you're not adjusting your pricing to meet the market and see what they're doing. And by seeing what they're doing with their rates, having it in a digestible format, you get a really good feel for what's happening. If all of a sudden you see prices plummet with a couple of your competitors, you know they're hurting. You know they're going, you know what, we're not going to fill. We're not going to get the target occupancy that we wanted, so they're panicking. Then you can make a decision around what you want to do. What are your holdings, and should you be following the same path? And if you're in the similar situation, you're going to have to follow them down. And that's just one example of how having that daily review of pricing of yours versus the competitors can help. Another thing you should be looking at daily is pickup. Now, if you're not familiar with the term pickup is the amount of, I guess, room nights that you've received, and pickup could be measured in room nights or revenue. We typically look at it in a revenue, a room night or slash occupancy perspective, because it's a pretty strong indicator. But pickup since the reports were last ran. So if you're running daily reports, it's obviously overnight. What was your overnight pickup? So if you're running reports at 10 o'clock in the morning, having a look, making adjustments, and pull the reports again 10 o'clock the next day, what was the pickup in that 24 hours? If you're on a weekly cycle and you're only looking at pickup on a weekly basis, well then you've got a bigger window. So a lot can happen in a week, but again, that's the cycle you're in. That's the pickup window you're looking at. So If you're doing daily, we also encourage a secondary window. So again, for your property it might be different, but our ideal situation would be where you're looking at daily pickup, so 24-hour pickup, and a 7-day window pickup, because it actually tells you, it gets you closer to the trend. So it's one thing to go, wow, we picked up 10 rooms overnight. The business is starting to come in. We must be inside our lead times. But what's the pickup over the last 7 days? And not only pick up, but these reports should tell you drop out. So when cancellations occur, you go, oh, we lost those bookings. And it gives you that representation of, okay, now we might need to change something. We just lost a 20-room booking for those few nights. So monitoring pickup on a daily basis is well worthwhile. In conjunction with that is holdings. So knowing what you're holding on any given day for the next month, or preferably right out to a year, is what we like to monitor it, but at least into the next 6 months. And don't get me wrong, trust me, if you've built these reports out, to do a month, you might as well do 6 months, and you scan down as you need. You might only scan on a daily basis, you might just scan down for the rest of this month. On a weekly basis, you might scan the next 2 or 3 months. On a monthly basis, you might scan the next 6 to 12 months. But if you've got the visual representation there, you can see the holdings, so how many bookings are already in the system. You can see the pickup. You can even compare your pricing on a day-to-day basis, depending on how far you want to scan ahead on the cycle you're on, daily, weekly, or monthly. And the fourth thing that you can start to track, if you've got enough support and sophistication into the reporting, I mentioned it earlier, is like a PACE report. PACE reports are really best digested on that daily basis, because it keeps you nimble, allows you to see things early and be able to then make adjustments. So again, it comes into the scale and size of your property. But on a daily basis, our basic summary is comparing pricing, yours versus competitors, pickup, pickup in the last cycle, so say pick up overnight and pick up on a 7-day basis, and holdings, daily holdings, summarised into fiscal periods, as well as potential of the PACE report. So that's all around if you have the resource and capacity to be looking at daily reporting. That's what we'd recommend you do. Now down to weekly, if you can't manage daily, well then everything you just heard in daily now belongs in weekly. However, if you can do daily, now here's what you should do weekly. So you do that on a day-to-day basis. Here's the additional thing that you should do on that weekly basis. So yes, we're looking at pricing daily, but now we want to look at pricing once a week. But instead of just scanning ahead for 1 or 2 months, you scan ahead for 3 to 6 months. So once a week, pricing, you scan ahead 3 to 6 months and have a look and try and find some outages where you're completely outpriced, as in you're too dear, or vice versa. You're too cheap and your competitors are up. So you're looking for those anomalies. The other thing on a weekly basis is trying to forecast what's going to happen in this month and the next month by day. So you're really trying to bring that or trying to do some of the guesswork and have a work out, well, where do we think we're going to end up? Based upon all the information, based upon all the data, based upon lead time, current holdings, the current pickup and demand that we're seeing going on, where do we think we're going to end up? And therefore, what should we do with pricing? At the end of the day, what it is your gut instinct looking at it. Like yes, if you can do strategic forecasting, good. But if you haven't got that set up, it's what you do quite naturally when you look at the calendar in your PMS and go, yeah, we'll fill. Yeah, we'll fill that night. It's that. But once a week, look down and look ahead for the next in this month and the next month. Where do you think you're going to fill? What's your gut tell you? Or get the proper reporting set up to tell you exactly, or more exactly. So then the final area around a reporting rhythm. We've talked about daily and weekly. Now this is monthly. A lot of this is similar. You're looking at similar things, but it's just the window broadens. You look further ahead. Because you don't want to be looking at, if it's January now, you don't want to be looking at January next year every day. That's too big of a job to be looking at, because you'd be looking at 365 days every day, too hard. daily cycle, daily reporting rhythm, you're looking a short window ahead. Weekly reporting rhythm, you're looking a little bit further ahead, 3 to 6 months. Monthly reporting rhythm, you're looking at the month just gone and the year ahead. All right, so that's it in basic sense. But let's go through monthly. So again, pricing, yours versus competitors. Have a scan over the next 12 months and see whether there's any major anomalies to see where, again, you're above the market or well below the market. And you want to try and even those humps out because you leave yourself a little bit exposed. Forecasting again for the next 3 to 6 months. When do you expect to fill and what's causing that? A lot of these reports, we like to see an events calendar built into it as well. So it gives you an idea of what's happening and why is that busy there without having to drill in and see what's booked in, what events are happening, what may be driving the demand. Historical productivity. So once a month, this is really what I'd call a performance report. And I'll give you an example of this in a minute. Is that you want to look back and say, how are we performing by some of those things we talked about earlier? How are we performing by channel? So what are the sources that are producing the best? How are we going by market? So corporate, leisure, group, conference. How are we going by agent? Breaking it down by the different either direct travel agents or online travel agents. So you see which ones are performing the best and can we do better? Breaking it down by company. So we talk about a corporate strategy. And if we've got an expectation in a company bringing X number of room nights on average per month, we should be tracking that and catching it early if it's falling behind, or jumping on it early if it's going really, really well. We need to be, I guess, thanking and rewarding the client. Review by rate code. What rate codes, what offers are getting picked up best, and also by room type. You can break it all down to these levels, and it all just gives you hints around what's working and what's not, and therefore ideas for new strategies. The other thing around reporting rhythm is we think it's really important to have, I guess, budgets and targets. It's always the goal, as I've mentioned before, to outperform last year. Not on a year-on-year perspective, but on a month-on-month, year-on-year perspective. So May beating May, as an example. So we really like to see that being done. If you're going to get into forecasting, it becomes a complex beast, but as I've mentioned earlier, it is very, very valuable. But what we'd suggest, if you want to get into it, this is what we're trying to set up. So for forecasting, on a daily basis, you want to be forecasting for the month ahead, for the next 30 days. Because that's where most properties that's well inside or well around their average lead time. You may have built some base in there, and now it's game time. Now all that transient business, the online business, I guess the reflex style business that's going to come in will happen in that window, and so it'd be very, very helpful to have your forecasting in place for the next month and to be monitoring that daily. Equally, if you're going to be doing daily into that weekly time frame, we encourage you to look at forecasting for the next 3 months. And then monthly, you want to be looking at forecasting for the next 6 months. Beyond that, it's probably getting a little bit hard to forecast outside of the 6 months, and it's all a little bit of guesswork. It's all reasonably accurate or inaccurate at times, but it's all to give you a guide and again, build confidence in your decisions. So there's an idea around what your operating rhythm or your reporting rhythm should look like when it comes to data and reporting. Again, we prefer daily. But if you can't do daily, break the cycle down and push it out to a weekly and a monthly cycle. The weekly and daily are more about finger on the pulse, what changes should I make. Monthly is both historical, how we're performing, and then a longer look forward. So the bigger the cycle, whether daily, weekly, monthly, the bigger the time frame on that cycle, the further you look forward and back. Hopefully that makes sense. So there you have it on reporting rhythms, and that just leaves me with going through, I guess, some ideas and examples of how we use some of this, use this data and put it into a digestible format that does build that confidence in your pricing decisions. So I'll run through that in the next section.